Hey, Walter Murphy, good to see you. My name is Jeff Robbins. I'm chairman of the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. This is our August 11th meeting. Ms. Larson, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Hackett.
Here.
Commissioner Boag.
Here.
Commissioner McGowan.
Here.
Commissioner Mesner.
Here.
Commissioner Najapa.
Here.
And Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 out of 7 commissioners present.
Great, thank you. This is a little bit out of order, but if I could have Commissioner Boag and Commissioner Hackett introduce yourselves so that the public knows which seat you're filling for this evening's public comment and hearing, that would be great. Commissioner Boag?
Thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Boag. I'm a policy advisor in the Department of Natural Resources, representing sorry, I'm just having a brain fart right now. Representing our director, Dan Gibbs, and my portfolio is on climate change and forest management.
Thank you, and sorry to put you on the spot, but was appreciative of having your attendance. And I knew that you were representing Commissioner Gibbs, the director of the Department of Natural Resources, but wanted everyone to know that. Commissioner Hackett.
Thank you. My name is Sean Hackett. I'm the Energy Liaison at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I'm sitting in today for our Director of Environmental Programs, John Putnam. My background is in environmental policy and law.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Hackett. Good to have you on board with us this evening. For members of the public, the Commission desired to have an evening meeting so that we could allow us to hear from you. And so this is the first evening meeting of the newly faceted Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. We're happy to have everyone here. Looks like we have 37 some odd participants. I think we had about 34 or 35 people sign up. Is that right, Ms. Larson?
Yes, that is correct. 33.
33, great. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. We had one matter on the consent agenda, Group A. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner McGowan and Commissioner Mesner. Is there any discussion with regard to the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, the consent agenda is approved. At this point, we move to commissioner comments. Do we have comments from commissioners? We can all see each other today, which is nice, so we can raise your hand or unmute yourself if you would like to present some comments to the rest of us. Seeing none, I will just inform members of the public that while commissioners are not in our offices, we remain under a work from home order. We are all working vigorously from home. There is a lot of information that we're all digesting in advance of the rulemaking hearing that will start up on August 24th. So we're going through all the parties' pre-hearing statements, the rules themselves, the responses to pre-hearing statements. Written testimony will be submitted shortly. And so all of that is definitely keeping us occupied from our work from home, in my case, bedroom. So with that, and with no commissioner comments, Ms. Larson, do we just move to public comment? It was noted that that would start at 5. We start early?
Yes, we certainly can begin early. And I know that our first speaker, Mr. Kirby Wynn, he's not yet in the meeting, but he did email me that he was going to be participating tonight. So if we want to give him a moment or two, we can certainly come back to him and we can start going down the list for the other.
Maybe what we can do is just go down the list, and if folks are ready and available, they can testify, and we'll make note of people that signed up that we did not. And then we can come back to them later. So the next person that signed up, and we historically have allowed elected officials and local government officials to testify at the beginning of the hearing. The only other elected official was Todd Brown, Mayor Pro Tem, Town of Telluride. If you can see if Mr. Brown is in the call.
Mr. Brown is not yet in the meeting, but your next speaker, Mr. Bott, is.
Okay, well then let's just, I mean, if commissioners are okay with this, it was to allow us to listen. So let's go to Ramesh Bott. Mr. Bott, you will be unmuted and we can see where you are, and we look forward to hearing from you. You and the other members of each member of the public will have 3 minutes to present your testimony to us.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep this short. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I would like to focus on 3 things. One, in my mind, the most important one is the fact that the biggest challenge to public health and environment today is climate change. And nobody with a straight face can argue that fracking can be done without worsening climate change. So we need to ensure that any analysis that you do, the COGCC does, and requires companies to do, especially cumulative analysis, takes this fact into consideration. Moreover, under House Bill 1261, the state has strict goals to limit greenhouse gas emissions. And it won't be possible to meet these goals if you continue to permit oil and gas operations without any effort to mitigate and offset emissions. So as a second point, I want to point out that study after study shows that proximity to fracking operations affects both humans and the environment. So you need to adopt strict setbacks from locations habitually used by people like buildings and schools, school grounds, and so on, and also from ecologically important areas such as protected open space. Moreover, these setbacks have to be strictly implemented. In other words, there should not be any wiggle room for discretion over setbacks. And I'm talking about setbacks along the lines of 2,500 feet or a mile or so, half a mile or so. So also a third point, and I think this is also very important. The COGCC needs to get rid of the mindset that you're here to facilitate oil and gas operations. It's actually quite the opposite. You are now required to protect health and the environment, not to accommodate fracking. So given that, I think you should feel free to reject any operation that adds to the burden on human health and the environment as required by Senate Bill 181. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Bott. And I think, as you are aware, we are contemplating taking up a rulemaking on several of these topics. It is on August 24th that we'll start, and we'll have public comment then. So I would encourage you to bring your thoughts to the rulemaking as well. Next, we have Jan Rose. Ms. Larson, is Ms. Rose available?
Yes, she is. So one moment while we unmute Ms. Rose.
I should be unmuted. Can you hear me, commissioners?
We can. We look forward to hearing
Great.
from you, Ms. Rose.
Thank you. My name is Jan Rose. I'm here representing myself. And I just wanted to point out to the commission that since the commission last met, which was not too long ago, we've had yet another bankruptcy in the oil and gas industry. And now all 3 of our top producing companies in the state have filed for bankruptcy in the last 12 months, leaving the status particularly of temporarily abandoned and shut-in wells in jeopardy. And I am personally concerned about the potential future impact of increasing our orphaned well inventory. I appreciate the proposed rules requiring, or at least providing, the director with the statutory authority to shut in a well if assets aren't transferred. But I wonder what we are doing as a state and what you all are doing as a commission to ensure that all of the assets that get moved from one company to another are in fact being exchanged one for one. My worry is that they're going after our production wells, but are far less interested in acquiring the assets of our stripper wells, our shut-in, our temporarily abandoned wells, and potentially wells that are located near residential communities because of the legal consequences of a spill, accident, or explosion. So I think we are in this incredibly vulnerable time, and I really want to encourage the commission to get that financial assurances rulemaking on the books before the end of 2020, so that we can start taking a more holistic look at the state of the finances of the industry. I noticed in your mill levy rulemaking that you are making an assumption that the price of a barrel of oil is going to stay at $42 a barrel for the rest of the year, and that the overall production is going to stay flat at 40 million barrels or 40 million barrels per quarter. And I wonder if you can tell me whether production reports indicate that we are currently at a 40 million barrel per quarter production level. Is that correct for the last quarter? I know we're not supposed to ask interactive questions, but I'm just curious how much production is currently taking place.
Thank you, Ms. Rose, for that testimony. We will, we have staff listening in, and they'll taking notes, and we'll get them to report back to us. I believe that we have Kirby Nguyen from Garfield County in the house, and so we would unmute you, Mr. Nguyen, and as a local government representative, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, we've got the sound and video there.
I got sound, and I got a picture of a really cute bear.
Okay, that'll work. I suppose we'll get on with it. My name is Kirby Nguyen. I'm the oil and gas liaison for Garfield County, Colorado. I'm here speaking actually this evening on behalf of our county commissioner, Mr. John Martin. He had a pressing thing he had to take care of personally this evening, so I'm speaking in his place. What we wanted to share with you from Garfield County was we know that you all hear, and I expect you probably will hear again tonight, you hear a lot of talk and concerns from our citizens, some of our citizens, a handful of them, from the Battlement Mesa area in Colorado. So Battlement Mesa, there are 2 active well pads inside Battlement Mesa. Garfield County required a major impact review process and a special use permit to allow those pads, which we did. So we just want to share some information on really what we see from our perspective about these drilling pads and the way they've been mitigated, what the nuisance issues are and are not. So there's 2 pads. They're being operated by URSA Operating Company. Before those pads were permitted by the local government, the Planning Commission came by for a site visit, and they visited with URSA, and they asked lots of questions about it. Our Board of County Commissioners did a site visit. We also had a site visit with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, a number of their experts, as well as COGCC staff, to help the county understand everything they needed to, and to ask the applicant before they even applied to, actually as they're applying, to make sure they accounted for all the sort of issues and opportunities for good BMPs could be in place. That was followed by 6 days of public hearings with absolutely unlimited public comment. And the county did earnestly take the input and suggestions from citizens about what would work, what shouldn't work, that sort of thing. Again, the COGC and the CDPHE provided their comments, and we endorsed and adopted pretty much all those into the permits. And the county, before any of this even happened, the county actually funded a pre-development perspective. If there's going to be oil and gas development in Battlement Mesa, we funded maybe even a first-in-nation health impact assessment that provided an assessment of what the issues could be for public health, safety, and welfare. That study produced about 70 recommendations for BMPs and conditions that needed to be tended, that probably should be looked at closely and tended to in any kind of a permit process. Garfield County actually required, and some of those things of the technology had gone by and gotten better, but Garfield County required the operator before as they applied to address all 70 of those so that we could have a robust set of information, and the citizens, and as well as our own experts, could have a robust set of information to consider what we needed to do to best mitigate these pads if the county were to decide to permit this oil and gas activity. The county, ultimately, after the 6 days of hearings and unlimited public comment, they applied about 27 conditions of approval to each pad. In the process, we looked at alternate locations that we asked the operator about to see if they would work better. And we ultimately decided on the 2 sites. We did receive comments from CDPHE. They saw that the sites could be mitigated, and they provided, I guess, a somewhat favorable comment in terms of they thought the site could be done safely. Many of the BMPs that we did include and the conditions of approval were based on citizen requests. And so there was a very robust process where the citizens were heard, included in the process. And ultimately, the COGCC, when they approved these well pads, they endorsed and adopted and enforced as their own some of our first in nation or first in class noise standards and things that hadn't been applied to other well pads in Colorado. We appreciate that, but it's just an example of the state and the local government really working well together to make sure that if you're going to have an oil and gas site, it's mitigated as well as it can be and effectively. As the oil and gas liaison, I am the oil and gas complaints department. My cell phone is known by just about everybody across the county. I advertise it online. I advertise it everywhere. And I take calls at 10 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, weekends, sometimes on vacation. And the whole point of that is to make sure the citizens' concerns are heard immediately. And rather than people getting in a queue, I call the operator, I call the state if necessary, and get immediate response, oftentimes within 5 or 10 minutes. We'll get someone out there on site to look immediately to see what the issues are. We feel like that worked out really well. The complaint traffic was not as extensive as you might hear. And as the oil and gas liaison, having dealt with oil and gas sites all over Garfield County, I say these sites were less impactful than many sites out in the gas patch out in more remote areas by comparison. And we point to the mitigations as being helpful for that. We required air sampling above and below the well pad during all drilling and completions activity. And so we just kept a really close hand on it. I personally was there probably 70, 90 days during drilling and completions myself to personally experience and see what was going on over there. And again, on behalf of my commissioners, so that when I speak to them and the operator reported quarterly on how things were going, I could speak from a first-hand basis of what the issues are. We do get occasional complaints currently, but during our process, the citizens predicted that the county was putting them in the face of having to live in an industrial zone for the rest of their lives living in Battlement Mesa. That's absolutely not the case. It's a wonderful.
Mr. Wynn, you could wrap up.
I will wrap that right up. So anyway, we just wanted you to hear about that, and we do respect and honor and appreciate the citizens that give you their comments and their perspectives. But again, from a county perspective, we wanted you to understand a little bit about the thoroughness that we went through, the seriousness with which we take citizen concerns and complaints, and the actions that we take to make sure that concerns are acted on rather than just simply reported to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wynn. We appreciate your comments, and we all send solid thoughts to you and your citizens. I understand there's a wildfire in Glenwood Canyon, and we hope that everybody's staying safe and you're able to work on that as well. Okay, with that, I believe that we have Telluride Mayor Pro Tem Todd Brown in the room. And Mr. Brown, we will unmute you, and as a local elected official, you too have 5 minutes to provide us your thoughts and perspective.
Thank you very much. As one of the few Western Slope representatives, I'd like to thank the commission for all the work you're doing on this. It's important to us as well as the people on the Front Range. In Telluride, we are on the edge of the Four Corners methane hotspot and have been following the work of the commission closely and applaud your efforts to institute monitoring on active and closed sites. I know personally that there are many closed wells in the southwest part of the state that continue to leak, and that the activity out of Aztec and Bloomfield and Farmington area of northern New Mexico certainly affects our air quality from time to time. And our tourism economy, like those of many mountain towns, depends on the climate that we're living in. And as it continues to get warmer and drier, it's more and more difficult for the entire Western Slope to maintain our economies and to see the water going into Colorado down into all those users downstream from us. So please continue to treat this as a whole state issue. It's not just Front Range, and it's not just new drilling, but it pertains to all these in place, already active extraction sites. Thank you for your patience and for your attention.
Thank you for your testimony, Mayor Brown. We appreciate your being able to appear. At times, the Zoom meetings allow for more robust participation by stakeholders across the state, and so glad that we were able to hear from you. Miss Amy Allen is here now, and we will unmute you, Miss Allen, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thanks very much. In the interest of public health and the climate, the state should not permit any new oil and gas wells. Additionally, the COGCC should compel all operators of oil and gas wells in the state to cease operations until the COVID-19 pandemic has been deemed to be over. The current respiratory health crisis necessitates urgent action. The COGCC should also enforce an immediate suspension of extractions operations at Bella Romero Academy and the shutting in of the wells. Documentation of the adverse health effects of exposure to oil and gas operations is steadily increasing over time. One recent example is a study published earlier this year by Cushing and others, which found an increase in preterm births among pregnant women who lived in proximity to natural gas flares, to an extent that the risk was on par with that imposed by smoking. Oil and gas operations in Colorado specifically are already having adverse consequences on public health, air and water quality, and the climate. Work by the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences at CU Boulder has demonstrated that emissions from oil and gas operations can contribute to as much as 35% of summertime peak ozone levels on the Front Range. Additionally, the WHO recommends ozone levels not exceed 50 ppb, and the EPA's own Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee recommended a standard of 60 ppb, making the regular exceedances of the current 70 ppb standard on the Front Range appear even more extreme. Global methane emissions reached a record high in 2017, the most recent year for which worldwide data is available, as reported in a recent article by Sano and others. An increase in orphaned wells due to bankruptcies of oil and gas companies, such as extraction, will only compound this. Existing orphaned wells in Colorado, as well as those that will inevitably be orphaned in the near future, will present a huge burden for public health and the environment, as well as the state's taxpayers, if this is not addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen, for your comments. At this point, Ms. Larson, who do we have next that is in the room?
Yes, next up in the meeting is Ms. Kimberly Wagner.
Hello, commissioners. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I think I'm covering ground that others have, but I want to add my voice. There are thousands and thousands of scientific peer-reviewed studies that have proven that climate change is real, and that the burning of fossil fuels is the most significant driver of global warming at this point. It's now very clear that the extraction and burning of fossil fuels must be phased out in order for this planet to remain habitable, and that it must be done in a fairly short period of time. I ask that this commission understand its larger role in oil and gas regulation as it relates to death and destruction that is occurring around the world due to climate change. Oil and gas emissions and pollutions know no borders. What I'm asking for at this point is that you cease permitting new fracking operation, a thorough review by Be the Change USA of peer-reviewed medical, public health, biological, earth sciences, and engineering literature shows that there's absolutely no way that fracking can be done in a way that doesn't threaten public health. And that's your mission, protect our public health. That you enact mandatory setbacks of 2,500 feet from wells. Again, peer-reviewed studies over the last decade have shown that there are significant increases in human health impacts like cancer and premature birth and birth defects within half a mile of fracking sites. A 500-foot limit isn't going to do it. A 1,000-foot limit isn't going to do it. 2,500 is what we need. Also, it's imperative that we shut down the fracking site at Bella Romero Elementary School immediately. It's a terrible stain upon our state, and that this blatant example of environmental racism was ever allowed to happen in the first place, and we need to really act quickly to prevent further harm from occurring there. Also, I am concerned, as others are, about the number of oil and gas and shale operators that are going bankrupt. I'm wondering, again, how is this going to impact the number of orphaned wells that we're dealing with? I know that you're looking at about 500 wells right now that you're going to be capping or in process of capping, but more will certainly arise. We have already got 60,000 existing wells in the state of Colorado. And as we are having to phase out oil and gas operations in order to protect our planet, all of those wells are going to need to be safely capped. If we're looking at $270,000, which is a conservative estimate for safely capping, and also for making sure that we can mitigate any sort of effects like explosions or leaks for those wells, at times 60,000 existing wells, that's $16.2 billion. We need to start looking at, I'd like you to please start looking at creating a fund that is protected from being seized by bankruptcy courts, that allows for an amount for current and future oil wells to deposit at least $270,000 in per well.
Ms. Wagner, if you could wrap up.
I will wrap up. Commissioners, you're standing here at a historical juncture, and the regulations that you enact will have a lasting effect not only for Coloradans and the state of Colorado. State and federal agencies look to Colorado when they make their energy policy. You have the ability to really leave a lasting legacy that will affect not just us Coloradans in our state, but our country and the entire global community. And I'm looking forward to seeing you be leaders, global climate leaders, as you move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Appreciate your comments. At this point, I believe that Susan Lynn Kirscher is up next. Ms. Kirscher, we will find you and unmute you. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for hearing me. My name is Susan Kirscher. I'm a private citizen in Fountain, Colorado. And I want you to please stop immediately the use of oil and gas in any form to power anything in Colorado. Oil and gas are a dying, out-of-date method of providing energy. The burning of fossil fuels and the manufacture of plastics and chemicals are simultaneously going out of date and killing the state of Colorado. Earth can no longer afford to have oil and gas continue with a business as usual while pretending there is no problem. Fossil fuel was born to be phased out as we phased out horsepower. Now is long past the time to abandon this planet-killing method of powering the world. Unfortunately, the stakeholders in this shameful practice will not put their personal fortunes ahead of the interests of almost 8 billion people, the flora and fauna impacted. Many in the industry have seen the writing on the wall. Most know it is not a viable product into the future. In the style of Michael Milliken, these people continue to hawk their wares and promote their interests as if there is a long-term future in burning oil and gas. There's abundant evidence these stakeholders are making plans to shift their personal fortunes to newer, safer, and publicly accepted alternative power sources, yet still want the maximum number of people fighting to keep oil and gas as a way of life. This is reminiscent of the big tobacco companies fighting to tell the public cigarette smoking is not a health hazard while continuing to market their deadly products and protect their interests in a business they knew would be losing support. The tactics were then, as they are now, to deny, confuse, and create misunderstanding and misinformation by criminally shielding the truth. The state of Colorado needs to severely regulate the oil and gas industry and commit to and urgently work to attain 100% renewable immediately and educate the public regarding the dire consequences of not achieving this goal. Further, it will not do to switch manufacturing from power producing to plastic producing facilities. Alternatives are available. Please start using them, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Larson, who do we have next?
Next up, we have Ms. Barbara Shedlow. And Ms. Shedlow, you should be unmuted.
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me tonight. My name is Barb Shedlow, and I live in Niwot. I'm retired. I spend much of my time hiking and fishing on Colorado's public lands. I'm also a volunteer as the vice president for our local chapter of Trout Unlimited. I'm here today to comment on the mission change rulemaking, specifically on the regulations that pertain to wildlife protections from oil and gas development. My concern is that the current drought protections for riparian zones, which are the green zones along the rivers, have a no disturbance or no drill zone of only 300 feet. This is not sufficient to protect our valuable streams and fisheries from the negative impacts of oil and gas drilling. I'm a geologist, and prior to retirement, I had a 30-year career with a major oil and gas company. I've spent many days on location at drilling wells. A drilling well is essentially a heavy equipment operation that is dusty, noisy, and uses toxic chemicals. Current multi-well drilling sites can be in operation for months, and even the most careful operators are at risk of spills of chemicals and produced fluids. Drilling this close to streams can cause erosion, sedimentation, and water contamination. The degradation of the riparian zone will harm our native trout, along with the many birds and mammals who use the zone. The visual effects and noise of a nearby rig can destroy the recreational experience for our outdoor anglers and hunters. I'm asking the commission to please expand the buffer along valuable streams from 300 feet to a quarter mile. Recent planning on BLM lands in Colorado and neighboring states have required these larger buffers. In addition, the commission should require practices for spill protection, including having tanks instead of pits, taking baseline water quality samples, and having spill response equipment on site. Thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Shedlow. And I would inform you, as well as the rest of the members of the public listening in this evening and or presenting to us, that August 24th will be the first day of the mission change rulemaking hearing. That is the hearing that the commission will take up changes to its rules as required by Senate Bill 19-181, and the concept of riparian setback or waterway setback is something that is docketed in that docket. And so, Ms. Shedlow, I would, if you like, you can appear and can present testimony at that point in time to the commission. You can also go online at our website, and there is a public comment online instructions on the homepage under news and announcements, and you can present your public comment about that there as well. So we appreciate it this evening, but I did want to direct you to the more appropriate venues for that comment as we take up those issues. So again, thank you this evening for your testimony. At this point, I believe we're going to Kaya Pharrell Smith, and I apologize for not getting your name right, Ms. Pharrell Smith. I believe you are unmuted and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Waklisi Gausasas Kaila, Nua Uksik Nua Modakni. Hi, my name's Kaila Farrell Smith. I'm a Klamath tribal member, artist, and activist living in Southern Oregon. And I am calling in today from Chiloquin, Oregon, on the former reservation, the former Klamath Reservation in Southern Oregon. South of Crater Lake, I live on the upper Klamath Lakes, which I'm a water protector, and we're up at the headwaters of the Klamath River. And so today I'm here speaking specifically about the Jordan Cove Energy Projects, which is a compressor station in Lynn, Oregon, a 230-mile pipeline, the Pacific Connector pipeline going from Lynn to Coos Bay, which cuts through my ancestral homelands and territories, and would go to an export terminal in Coos Bay. And so this project, I've been in resistance to it personally on the front lines for 4 years, and I'd like to speak to some health concerns. So as a Klamath Tribal member, woman, artist, and outspoken activist against the Jordan Cove Energy Projects, I'm concerned about the health threats posed to Southern Oregon, specifically the threat of man camps near our tribal communities. And so why I'm speaking to this is that there is proposed to be using the frat gas coming from places like Colorado to be shipped through the Jordan Cove Energy Projects to be exported to Asian markets. So I'm speaking specifically to how this is directly impacting our communities in Southern Oregon, and they are very much connected with the fight to stop fracking and to stop the oil and gas extraction projects happening across the West, but including in Colorado. So since my visit to Standing Rock in 2016, I've learned more about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirits as related to fossil fuel extraction and infrastructure projects. In a recent teach-in webinar by Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility, I learned that a 2,100 person temporary labor camp would be built on North Sandspit in Coos Bay during the construction of the LNG terminal with a one-way in, one-way out access road, impacting emergency response, water supply, police and fire resources, and health resources. These camps have resulted in increases in crime, drug use, assaults, kidnapping, sex trafficking, and sexually transmitted diseases, and HIV/AIDS in local communities. They also wrote that additional camps may be needed along the pipeline route in rural areas and tribal lands, like where I live, my ancestral homelands of the Klamath, Modoc, and Paiute. There are documented experiences that these man camps have a direct health impact on Native American women, specifically related to the Dakota Access Pipeline and in the Bakken oil fields of North Dakota. James Anaya, a UN official, said in 2014, "It has become evident that extractive industries many times have different and often disproportionately adverse effects on Indigenous peoples, and particularly on the health conditions of women." He detailed the effects on Native American women and girls, including increased rates of sexually transmitted diseases, HIV/AIDS, physical assault, sexual harassment, and violence. He additionally noted that the contamination of Indigenous lands and natural resources resulting from extractive activities has significant implications for reproductive health, having contributed in many cases to birth defects, delayed child development, and disease among community members. There's a direct correlation between environmental justice and tribal health. The Klamath tribes, Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, Yurok tribe, Karuk tribe, Tolobadini Nation are staunchly opposed to the Jordan Cove Energy projects. Other impacted tribes have voiced serious concern about this project, including the Confederate tribes Coos, Lower Umpqua, Sayusla Indians, Coquille Indian Tribe, Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, and the Confederated Band of Grand Ronde Community.
Ms. Farrell-Smith, if you could wrap up, please.
Sure thing, I will wrap up. The overall threat to mental health on Southern Oregon is extremely concerning, and mainly the stress, the impact of emotional and spiritual stress due to the destruction of sacred burial grounds and cultural resources, and as well just the stress of air, water, and noise pollution. Thank you very much for hearing my testimony today.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell-Smith. And again, it sounds like you had additional information you wanted to share. You can do that via the online portal with written comments. We would appreciate hearing that. Ms. Larson, can you identify the next speaker?
Yes, Micah
Ms.
Parkin.
Parkin.
Yes, Miss Micah Parkin is our next speaker, and Miss Parkin, you should be unmuted.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Micah Parkin, Executive Director of 350 Colorado. I'm here today to speak on behalf of our 20,000 members statewide. We've testified before this commission monthly for many years. I welcome this new commission with hope that you bring dedication and determination to achieve your new post-SB 19-181 mission to regulate oil and gas operations in such a way as to protect public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife. This mission can only be met if you're basing decisions, rules, and regulations on best available peer-reviewed science. So we call on you to carefully consider with each decision if you're truly fulfilling your new mission or if you're making decisions based upon the antiquated premise of fostering a toxic and unprofitable industry. If the COGCC has not yet completed an in-depth analysis of the large body of public health research on the impacts of fracking and made rules and regulations based upon that data, how can you permit fracking without putting the public in jeopardy? We believe doing so is irresponsible and inconsistent with the COGCC's new mission. The COGCC must examine the extensive research on safe distances between fracking and our children's homes and schools and base setbacks on distances that do not greatly increase their risk of being born with congenital heart defects or to develop leukemia. Permitting oil and gas production within 2,500 feet of homes and schools is inconsistent with best available science, and allowing it to continue at low-income communities of color like Bella Romero Academy is environmental racism, which must not be tolerated. Research from NCAR showed that oil and gas operations are responsible for as much as 40% of the ozone-forming pollution in our air, which is already F grade, according to the American Lung Association, and in serious non-attainment, according to the EPA. Additional permitting causes more children to develop asthma and more people to suffer and die of respiratory and cardiovascular problems. Research from Harvard and other institutions shows that pollution worsens the outcomes from COVID-19, including increased risk of death. Permitting additional pollution during this pandemic increases the risk of severe outcomes and is also inconsistent with the COGCC's new mission. Research from Harvard, Cornell, and NOAA show that the dangerous global methane spike over the last decade is primarily due to North American fracking. Permitting significant new oil and gas development when the IPCC says we must phase out fossil fuels largely in the next decade to keep global temperature rise from exceeding 1.5 C exposes Coloradans to increased danger and harm. It's irresponsible and inconsistent with the COGCC's new mission and with HB 191261, which calls for our state to rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Research also shows that the oil and gas industry has never generated even 1 year of positive cash flow in aggregate, even when oil prices were high. It's over $260 billion in debt and leaving communities with potentially billions of dollars in cleanup of orphaned and abandoned wells as companies go bankrupt and the industry goes bust. Continuing to permit without requiring increased bonding and third-party financial assessment is fiscally irresponsible and not in line with the COGCC's new mission. To achieve your new mission, we urge you to cease all permitting until you've carefully studied the research and put in place truly protective rules and regulations based upon that research. The decisions you're making right now are life and death for thousands of Coloradans and will impact millions current and future. They can't be made lightly and must be made with integrity. Please stand with Coloradans depending on you and be willing to rock the boat to protect them if you must. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parkin. At this point, we have Barbara Vasquez, and then on deck is Alan Harvey. Ms. Vasquez, you are unmuted. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, this is Barbara Vasquez. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you. Thank you. Oh, you just muted yourself.
Apologize for the time.
It's okay. You have 3 minutes, Ms.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. I'm Barbara Vasquez. Jackson County, or North Park as it's known, is an example of how not all rural areas in Colorado are the same. It's a very lightly populated county with approximately 65% public lands, including Arapaho National Wildlife Refuge, state and national forests with multiple wilderness areas, and BLM. With a strong component of our evergreen economy dependent on outdoor recreation, the prevalence of healthy environment and wildlife populations is critical. Since the first shale oil well was developed in 2006 in Jackson County, 100% of the co-produced natural gas has been flared. The argument put forward by operators is that there's no pipeline to take the resource out of the county. And to my knowledge, none is under consideration for construction. Flaring is a waste of a resource that should be captured and also shortchanges taxpayers from the revenue that would be generated if it were captured and sold. In addition to the resource waste and financial issues, poorly operated flares can emit methane and VOCs, harmful to local residents and injurious to climate change. Flares can also confuse wildlife life and destroy the dark night skies, which is an attribute which has attracted amateur astronomers to North Park for years. There are alternatives to flaring in absence of a pipeline, including capturing and compressing the gas into LNG to be transported by rail or road. In addition, the gas could be captured for use running operations on site. There are other alternatives as well. So I look forward to working with you, the new professional commission, to institute a requirement for a comprehensive gas capture plan, leading stepwise to zero flaring in Colorado during the ongoing SB 181 rulemaking. And I really appreciate you providing this time for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, and we appreciate your commentary this evening and would encourage you as well to participate in the mission change rulemaking on the issues that you've raised this evening. At this point, I believe we have Alan Harvey.
Yeah, Alan Harvey, thank you.
Hey, Alan, nice to hear you.
Not a standard spelling, but I appreciate you trying a few different faces for that name. So my name's Alan Harvey. I grew up in Colorado, up in the mountains. I grew up in Aspen. I moved away and then came back in 1998 and have lived in the Carbondale area since 2000. I've served as a trustee in Carbondale from 2012 to 2016. I'm currently on the board of the Wilderness Workshop. I'm not speaking for that organization, but I am speaking as someone who's been an active recreational user of the wilderness and the surrounding public lands, and of a skier, a lifelong skier, and a resident who really does care about our environment. This 900 series flaring regulations are, really an important step, I think, in helping the COGC really, kind of capture kind of one of those places where the climate and the energy kind of mixed in a way that doesn't really make sense to a lot of people. There's a lot of value in that energy for operators and all the work that they've done to put that in the ground. And I'd love to see that captured and taken to market. I am not against natural gas entirely. I think it plays an important part in our energy picture, but I'm also for really being wise about this. So I'm just going to advocate for strong rules. I'm a little earlier than in the lineup than I thought I was ready, but I'm going to advocate for strong rules and really taking advantage of this opportunity to start the rulemaking process or take the second step or third step with the COGCC under SB 181 and really starting to put the environment and in this case the industry's economic well-being in perspective and create some rules that affect that. So thank you for your time. As someone who lives up in ski country and right at the edge of this very warm section of Colorado, according to the Washington Post story of global warming, I think we're at about 2 degrees Celsius above what we historically have been. I appreciate your looking at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. We appreciate those comments. Thanks for participating with us this evening. Ms. Larson, is it Larry Foreman? Is that next?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, my name is Lawrence or Larry Foreman. I live in Battlement Mesa near Parachute, and my house has an excellent view of Battlement Mesa Company Pad B, and I also have a good view of the proposed BMC Pad A. I hope that the western Colorado counties do not get control of where gas drilling sites are located. Battlement Mesa Company Pad A was approved by the Garfield County Commissioners, even though the site is directly below a steep hill that has serious erosion problems. The Pad A site is about 600 feet from Battlement Mesa's drinking water supply, and the site is only about 500 feet from homes. And I'm glad that the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission is now making health the highest priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. We appreciate your being able to testify this evening. We now have Steve Douglas, followed by Christy Douglas. Looks like Mimi is getting them unmuted.
Hi, this is Steve Douglas. Thank you, commissioners, in your new role. I was a past former council member of Commerce City, and I believe in public service. And I served 8 years giving back to the public. And just want to let you know, I believe in this process. I do not want to see Commerce City be put in the category of gambling. What I say by that is we used to have the dog track, and people used to go over there and they used to play the trifecta. And so I say I do not want Commerce City to be put in that category with our air quality is poor, our water quality is poor, our health, safety, and welfare is also connected to that as well. So I do not want to see that play out. So and whether I say that is because we have the potential of 300-something wells coming in Commerce City with a company that's in financial ruins right now, and that's Extraction Oil and Gas. So I'm asking you to put the brakes on any new permits, stop approving new drilling permits. The state needs to stop bailing out the oil and gas industry. Colorado needs to focus on protecting the health and families, and they should not be distracted by having to respond to new oil and gas drilling proposals in or near our community, especially Commerce City. With the oil and gas industry and economic collapse, Colorado can't afford to keep approving oil and gas extraction. The state needs to focus on securing financial assurance from companies to ensure full cleanup of their operations. Focus needs to be put on adopting stronger safeguards for Colorado health, environment, and safety. Also, the Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change tells us that 66% chance of avoiding climate catastrophe by limiting the global average temperature rise no more than 1.5 Celsius above previous industrial standards. The world must achieve zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2038. Last year, the Colorado General Assembly passed Senate Bill 96 and HB 19-1261, which together established the greenhouse gas emissions reduction goal for 2025, 2030, and 2050. And the 2025 goals are reducing emissions by 26% compared to the 2005 level, aligned with the IPCC, a 66% chance of the scenario keeping global temperatures below 1.5 Celsius. Again, I urge you to please make stronger regulations. Please do not gamble Commerce City and putting extraction of oil and gas first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. I believe we have Christy Douglas is next.
Yes, and we are on the same computer. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, awesome. My name is Christy Douglas. I'm a concerned citizen of Commerce City as well. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a wife, and I hope a good neighbor and an advocate for the well-being of our community. I would like this new commission to acknowledge the fact that in the past, there was a culture that had a presumption of approval for wells. And now that we have 181 in place, there really has to be a shift so that the culture is a presumption of denial. And that is that the oil and gas companies have to show you that they belong in the neighborhood. They will do no harm. And quite frankly, I don't think that's possible. It's a very dangerous industry, not only with toxins, but the possibility of explosions. And I can't tell you how nervous it makes community members. The other thing that I noticed last time in listening to the testimony, there was only one representative from oil and gas. Really caught my attention. And so I'm wondering if the oil and gas industry feels like they should be comfortable in stepping back from testifying because they don't have to. I wonder if they feel safe under your commission. I hope that's not the case, but I just wanted to let you know that we're watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. We appreciate your commentary to us this evening. We now have Lori Costello, and you have been unmuted and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lori Costello. I'm a family physician originally from California who practiced for 25 years in Washington State, where I did my residency training. I retired in Durango in 2015 and became involved in exposing the health effects of fossil fuel extraction and usage. These proven health effects are largely ignored in a private healthcare system that is subject to the same institutional injustices as the racial injustices that have been highlighted recently by the pandemic. One of the major problems, as I see it, is the inordinate amount of time and money spent by industry on marketing and lobbying. Healthcare and the environment have become politicized. Protections for the people and for the environment that sustains us are considered regulations by industry. The social determinants of health, which are now sometimes referred to as the political determinants of health, result in unconscionable disparities in the wealthiest nation on earth. Natural gas has been promoted as cleaner than coal in a strategic marketing scheme that parallels the tobacco industry's denial of the known harms of smoking. Oil and gas has not only repeatedly denied the science when it comes to fracking, they deny that the science even exists. The result is the continued destruction of public health and of the environment while available protections are ignored. Thank you for serving on the COGCC. I submit that the best oil and gas conservation for Colorado is to keep it in the ground. The previous CDPHE director denied the health effects of fracking, despite the excellent research done locally by Lisa McKenzie at CU Boulder involving children and pregnant women. The intentional misinformation surrounding Proposition 112 and Senate Bill 181, and now the economic impacts of the COVID pandemic on the industry, are simply weapons designed to perpetuate the disregard for public health and safety, the environment, and wildlife. Please strive to promote the well-being of all of Colorado and choose to be on the right side of history. Thank you for your time and welcome to the COGCC.
Thank you, Dr. Costello. We appreciate your comments. We now have Greg Hardy, and Ms. Larson will find you and unmute you, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Give us a moment, Mr. Hardy. It's being obstinate. Mr. Hardy, you should be unmuted now.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that. Yeah, like I said, my name is Greg Hardy. I live in Silverthorne. I'm a retired oil and gas professional, and I'm currently the Vice President of Colorado Trout Unlimited. I'm asking the Commission to increase the buffer zone along Colorado's valuable rivers to 1/4 mile. As you know, the protection of our riparian habitat is critical to ensure the long-term health of our valuable watersheds and the survival of the native Colorado cutthroat trout species. The expansion of the riparian buffer zone will afford the increased protections that are mandated in the Commission's mission of protection of Colorado's wildlife resources. I have a master's degree in wildlife and fishery science and 30+ years of experience in safety and environmental management with a major oil company. My entire career has been devoted to understanding and balancing the risk management of oil and gas operations. By its very nature, the extraction of oil and gas is a business that has the potential to be very harmful to the environment. With that said, I firmly believe the additional safeguards of expanding the riparian buffer zone is essential for the future of Colorado's native fisheries and wildlife resources. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. We appreciate your comments, and I, for one, would encourage you to present your comments either online to the Mission Change Rulemaking or attend the August 24th hearing, either the day session or the evening session, so that the commissioners can hear those comments in association with the setbacks discussion that we'll be having during that rulemaking. So thank you again for presenting this evening to us. At this point, next we have Barbara Millsbury. I bet Ms. Larson has unmuted you. It looks like that's the case. You have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. You can hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, and my name is Barbara Millsbury. I'm a retired engineer. I worked in hydropower for 34 years, and I have degrees in civil and structural engineering and theoretical mathematics. And I'm currently the president of Be the Change Colorado. It's been well over a year since Senate Bill 181 passed. So many of us citizens turned up at the state capitol till the wee hours of the morning to press for this law to be passed. And we honestly expected that the bill would offer some relief, but no, wells have continued to be permitted at pace, even though the COGCC is now supposed to protect public health and safety and the environment instead of promoting the oil and gas industry. And none of the wells permitted since 2019 have had high enough bonding to ensure the orphan wells left behind can be plugged when the companies go out of business, because of course they will. Fracking has never been profitable, and these companies have always been over leveraged. So pandemic aside, the moment we are in with companies going out of business and declaring bankruptcy has always been the future of the industry, regardless of the slick ads deceiving the general public about how wonderful this industry is. Now it is reported that you have increased the mill levy, so at least you will be funded, but that just implies that the COGCC funding depends on continued permitting and drilling to survive financially. It certainly appears to be to the general public that you intend to continue promoting the industry, paying public health and safety in the environment. What you guys need to do is stand up to this dirty, polluting industry, which is leaving in its wake untold damage to Colorado, all in the name of greed. COGCC is currently in the process of proving wells to be drilled in Windsor by Extraction, the company that just paid top executives millions of dollars a week before it declared bankruptcy and 4 months after it laid off workers. So much for jobs, 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 as the industry declares is important. Seriously, it's time to reverse course, stop the damage to the health of the citizens of Colorado and the environment of our beautiful state, and start following the law. Taxpayers do not want to clean up after this greedy, polluting industry, especially when we have been warning about this for years. Please do not shut citizens out of your policies and decisions. Please be transparent and let the public know what you are doing behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Millsbury. We appreciate your comments, and we will look forward to hearing from your group as a stakeholder in the Mission Change Rulemaking. Ms. Larson, do we have others that have signed up for public comment that are in the House?
We do. We have one other commenter, Ms. Renee Miller-Chacon. And Ms. Chacon, you are unmuted if you'd like to speak now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, it's a little faint.
a little bit faint, but we can hear you.
Here, hold on. I might have to actually fix you for just a moment. I apologize.
Okay, your time's not running. Let's get you to where we can hear you good, and then we'll get started.
Okay. How's this? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you, Ms. Millard Chacon.
Thank you. Sorry, I apologize. I just got off of work. Wali, buenas noches, good evening. My name is Renee Millard Chacon. I'm a Diné Mexica woman with ancestors from southern Colorado and New Mexico. And I'm an Indigenous Chicana activist, educator, youth program coordinator from Spirit of the Sun in Denver, but I speak on my own behalf as a mother of 2 sons. I'm determined to fight for social justice and climate justice for them and future generations. We all live on the land of the Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapaho people now called Colorado. I live in the U.S. Navy with my husband. We now reside in Commerce City, Colorado, that has become known for generations for the insidious pollution of Suncor and other extractive industries choking POC for decades of proven deadly environmental racism. As an Indigenous woman, and learned from the women before me, we have the resilient perspective of survivors realizing predatory targeting by industries to exploit resources and people. In fact, we're the first victims of that in America, unfortunately going on to this day from the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, children, 2 spirits, and with no accountability or intervention both on the federal and state protections, rural or urban. Under Trump, the EPA has ignored current science on particulate pollution that could have saved thousands this year during our generation's worst pandemic. And the EPA's Administrator Andrew Wheeler has refused to strengthen the current national standards of deadly particulate pollutions. We already have evidence of those standards in Colorado being so harmful now, as children breathing in the poisonous effects of benzene at Belo Romero and Greeley. I'm also a teacher, a substitute teacher, and for the sake of climate, clean air, and communities, Colorado needs to end fracking, especially in this time of unprecedented health concern. The state needs to put people first, not polluters. We need to make sure that Andrew Wheeler and the EPA's cowardly response to decline to strengthen standards to a direct environmental injustice and social welfare injustice to BIPOC Americans living first and near around fossil fuel industries, making this a human rights offense, be accountable. We need science to not be disregarded or degraded, and racism to not continually be perpetuated by a deadly flesh for cash business that has become extractive industries and exploitation. I warn you, become predatory, and what are predators trying to do? Add in a pandemic and you have the opportunity to rush the American people's public comment period for serious threat concerns. You have deadly standards consciously chosen by our own government's officials to its own people. I ask you to stand up as good ancestors at this time. When Polis has already approved 3,000 fracking wells in and around the area, the hallmark of SB 181 needs to be upheld as the public health and environmental protection and conditioned against new oil and gas development. Short-term concerns from benzene and health exposure can lead to headaches, nosebleeds, dizziness, tremors. Long-term exposure can increase the risk of acute leukemia and can be harmful to reproductive organs, affecting fertility and humans' harmful effects. Oil and gas is a major contributor to bad ozone days in Colorado, just like today. I ask that we all be good ancestors and stand for our children, that we correct corruption at the expense of our health by strengthening particulate pollution standards, stop protecting predatory polluters, and start responding to America's environmental human needs during a respiratory pandemic. Dramatic.
If you could try to wrap up. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I humbly ask you as a teacher, as a mother, as an educator, and a community member to please keep our future generations in mind for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. I believe we have Betsy Leonard is on the call. And Ms. Leonard, you are unmuted and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Betsy Leonard, and I have been living in Battlement Mesa for 15 years. I encourage you to develop rules that are applicable to all places within Colorado. As you wrestle with redesigning mission change rules, remember that toxic fumes are the same to a home on the West Slope as they are to a home on the Front Range. We need statewide rules. The gas and oil industry is powerful. with tentacles reaching into many areas. But you can stand up to them. Drilling should not be closer than 1,500 to 2,000 feet from a home. I know, living 1,000 feet from well pads in Battlement Mesa, neighborhoods that 1,000 feet is not enough setback distance. We experience nosebleeds, stinging eyes, disruptive sounds, headaches, and nauseous smells. Ursa Resources promised Battlement Mesa $1 million once they started drilling within our community. To date, we have only received $500,000. We could have used that money to develop a park or repair our recreation center. Drilling has threatened our schools and our water supply, including at our intake valve on the Colorado River. Drilling has changed this formerly tight-knit community. We need strong rules from the COGCC because we have a county commission that is in the pocket of the oil and gas industry. They have not ruled to protect citizens, but rather to line county accounts. In fact, they have spent $1.5 million of public money to defeat new COGCC rules. We need strong rules on the state level and restrictions on local government writing rules that are less protective. Finally, the approval of gas pads must include cumulative impacts of other gas development in the area. Battlement Mesa is a case in point. Hundreds of gas wells surround Battlement Mesa, including within 500 feet of our community boundary. Yet more gas wells were approved for within our community. We don't know what the lasting impacts of this arrangement will be. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard, for your comments. And we hope to see you at the August 24th hearing as well, so that you can present us comments about mission change there as well. We now have Daniel Pharrell is available, and you are unmuted, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, so I live in La Plata County, and I've worked in a lot of different farms very close to
Mr. Proud, we can't hear you. Are you still speaking?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay. So yeah, I live in
what?
Can you hear me?
Why don't you start over and I'll give you 3 minutes.
All right. So I live in La Plata County, and I've worked on a number of different farms throughout the year out in where there's lots of natural gas pads and huge generating stations like Wolf Point Generating Station. And I've smelled lots of strange smells throughout the years and never seen any regulators or anyone come by, even though when I'm working full time out there and staring at the pads all day. And that really concerns me because I don't know what I'm breathing in and putting into my body when I'm out there working. And I feel like I should have the right to breathe clean air wherever I am. And as much as that concerns me, I'm even more concerned about what's happening on the Front Range, where there's millions of people in a small area, and even more venting and flaring. And all in all, these oil and gas companies are making record profits. And I just think it's criminal and a complete moral aberration that, these companies are allowed to make millions upon millions of dollars and pollute the air on, and these innocent kids who make no choice and have no choice to opt out of breathing in these fumes. And here we are just sitting on our hands and talking about it for years and years. But I think we need something urgent. We need something action immediately to protect the health of the citizens of the state. And I hope that this commission will hear the voices they're hearing today and take urgent action so that we can keep our citizens healthy and, you know, keep these companies under control, because they have plenty of money, and we just need to find a way to get some of that money to regulate it, because it's just unacceptable for this type of action to continue. And it's unacceptable for, you know, children to have to breathe in these noxious fumes. And I've heard a lot, and I've gotten signatures for setbacks, you know, 1,000 feet, 2,500 feet away. But from the studies I've read in Boulder County, you know, miles and miles away from where, like, the most of the fracking is occurring in Weld County, they're still detecting emissions, you know, 10 miles away. So, you know, those are great, and those setbacks might really help, but we still need people out on the ground making random, unannounced checks at these pads and detecting emissions and forcing these companies to not flare off and to update their infrastructure so they don't have to flare off millions and millions of, you know, gallons of gas, liters of gas when they run out of room. So sorry for my somewhat frantic tone, but I just had a long trip today. But I applaud you for trying to make a solution here, and I hope that you can make action fast.
Thank you, Mr. Pharrell, for your comments. I would note that if you go to our website, on the top left-hand corner, there's a tab for complaints, and a very self-explanatory way to lodge complaints. So if you do see issues and believe there is something that's in violation, please let us know. We have field inspectors located in La Plata County just for that very reason. Ms. Larson, do we have others that have signed up that are in the room?
Not at the moment. We have 12 individuals who signed up to speak that have not logged in yet to the meeting. I can read their names, and perhaps if those who are on the call right now are know of them and want to send them a text or a message, we can maybe give them a chance to dial in.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's read the names off of those that signed up. And if others that are on the line know of any of these people, please let them know. That we'll give them, maybe we'll take like a 10-minute break and give folks a chance to call in, and then we can see if we've got the remaining folks that signed up. So who was on the list that has not joined yet?
So we have Tracy Mcdermott, Theron Mackley, Bonnie Smeltzer, Gary Evanson, Patricia Nelson, Christian Fowler, Kathy Collins, Marcia Woodland, Jenna Parker, Jessica Lockfeld, Stuart Guthrie, and Tamara Griffith. And I do see someone chatted in saying that some of the folks from Battlement Mesa had challenges signing in. I'll resend the Zoom information out so folks have that. It is on our website, on our main page, but we'll go ahead and also put that now out on the chat.
Great. So commissioners, it's 6:20. Do we want to return at 6:30 and give folks 10 minutes to potentially make their way into our meeting, and then we can see if we've got others to testify? Seeing shaking of heads. We'll see you each other in 10 minutes. All right, Hearings Officer Larson, it is 6:30. Looks like commissioners are making their way back into the room. Were you able to determine if anyone else joined us that has signed up?
Yes, we do have 3 additional members of the public who signed up who are now in the meeting: Tracy Mcdermott, Bonnie Smeltzer, and Patricia Nelson. So we can have them speak this evening if you are ready, Mr. Chair.
No, that's great. It worked. We got some more folks that were wanting to speak that have made it into our house this evening. So let's start with Tracy Mcdermott.
And just as I said that, now Ms. McDermott is no longer here. So we'll go to Bonnie Smeltzer.
Thank you very much.
Hi, you have 3 minutes. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. I have lived almost all of my life in Garfield County. And in 2002, I moved to Battlement Mesa. And by 2008, Antero had come to our community to announce that they would be drilling from well pads inside and outside the area of Battlement Mesa. On late spring of 2010, I began noticing very strong odors that came into my house. They were very noxious odors. I couldn't describe what they were, and I kind of wondered where they're coming from. And of course, the only place nearby that had anything to do with different odors was that gas well pad. So I began keeping my information written in a logbook. What time I smelled the odors, what it smelled like, if I could determine, the direction of the wind and the velocity of the wind, and how it affected me. And it almost always gave me a headache. I felt nauseous. If I had to smell it very long, I was lightheaded, and it even caused me to have 2 nosebleeds, one of which sent me to the emergency room. So I was keeping all this information, and I have kept it through the years. My latest entry into my logbook was July 31st, a strong odor in the Anvil Points area at 9:30 in the evening. This logbook has given me an insight to the gas well industry and how odors from the gas well industry can infect your health. I know that the symptoms I just told you were very common to those who had any home that was close to a gas well company. The odors can be very unusual and hard to determine, but I always call them industrial odors. And here's one thing I hope I want to get across, is that they can vary in strength and direction, depending upon the wind direction, how strong the wind is, and the velocity. They can linger, or they can be subtle. They can be strong or subtle. They can linger or be fleeting. And when you're smelling them, you know very well it's not good for you. So that's why for the last 10 years, I have been speaking out, writing letters, filing complaints, going to hearings, because I'm concerned about the health issues and the environment of our community. It's very obvious that gas wells should not be close to neighborhoods, schools, hospitals. Communities need to be free of any kind of gas well pads. And one thing I wanted to tell you, that living near gas wells is not like living next to a cattle feedlot. These odors are not in the air all the time. It depends upon what's going on the well pad and what the particular process is happening on the well pad. So they can vary in the kind of odor and the strength of the odor, how long they last, and as I said before, wind direction. So through the month of May this year and early June, I was calling in complaints. I called in at least 15 of them, and they were from well pads that were 3 to 5 miles west of us down I-70, and that period of time, the southwest winds were blowing all of those odors from two companies that are down in that area, where there are well pads in that area. So you can be miles away from a gas well and still be impacted by the odors. And so I just want to make that clear. It's not something you smell all the time. So I think they think we're just imagining things.
Ms. Meltzer, if you could wrap it up.
Well, I'm wrapped up, thank you. And
Thank you
I hope that I don't have to keep fighting this.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I'm glad that we were able to locate you to be able to testify. Ms. Larson, is it Patricia Nelson is next?
Yes, we do have Ms. Nelson next.
And do we have anyone else, just so that we can be aware?
We do. Ms. McDermott, Tracy McDermott is back in the call, as is Kathy Collins.
Great, okay. Ms. Nelson, we will unmute you and we look forward to hearing from you. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Patricia Nelson. I live in Greeley, Colorado in Weld County, one of the highest producing county of oil and gas production in the state. Also the home of a well pad site that is 668 feet from my son's playground at his school. I'm sure a lot of you already know who I am. I have been speaking at these hearings for years now, initially trying to stop the wells and now trying to get those wells shut in. Some of you may have seen my recent letter to the COGCC, the CDPHE, and Governor Polis, just because of some very startling things that we have just uncovered. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the miscalibration of the initial benzene levels that were reported at our school. Initially, the benzene levels reported at our school were 10.24 parts per billion, which is already high for children. And so in April, CDPHE quietly put out a statement of erroneous, or errata, a statement of errata or something like that. So the levels that were actually recorded at the school in November were 14.72 parts per billion, which is almost 50% higher. And then one of the things that we also recently found out was that the wells at the school were leaking for approximately 2 days. And nobody said anything, which is really, really terrifying. And you, Mr. Robbins, actually got this letter. I was trying to send it to the new directors at COGCC, but you received it as well, and nobody has replied. So what I want to know is why was it possible that these wells were leaking less than 700 feet from a school and nobody said anything, nobody evacuated, when typically, especially in our area, when there are gas leaks detected, everything within 2,500 feet is evacuated. So, I want to pose this question again to this commission, because I know some of you are new. What is it going to take before you guys start taking action, holding these companies accountable for what they're doing to our environment? I'm worried about my child's health and safety, especially because before these wells were even approved, the fire department showed the school board a diagram of, if there was a need to evacuate, they would evacuate within 2,500 feet. And 2,500 feet, that boundary extends beyond the school. So again, I'm going to just keep asking the same questions I've been asking for years now. What is it going to take? Do our children need to start getting sick? Because a lot of them are already experiencing symptoms of exposure. The headaches, the nausea, the unexplainable rashes, the nosebleeds, the coughing fits. And especially now during a global pandemic, it's only going to get worse. And so, what is it going to take? What are the thresholds that need to be met before something is done? Because I've been asking your agency, I've been asking other agency, and nobody can give me an answer. Like, do our kids actually need to start dying before you guys take action? Because, extraction has gone bankrupt. There have been elevated levels of benzene. There have been leaks at the school. Like, what has to happen? Do the wells need to blow up before anything happens and anybody is held accountable? We're getting afraid you know, that it's going to come to the point where these wells are going to get abandoned because extraction doesn't have the funds to continue paying the premiums on their bonds. And we all know the bonds only are in place if the bond premiums keep getting paid. And well, I do want to say one last thing. Thank you for having this hearing after normal work hours, because, you know, a lot of us do work 9-to-5 jobs, and it's really, really hard to be taking time off for years to come to these hearings during the day.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. We appreciate your comments. I would like to let you know that I did pass the letter along, and COGCC staff and the director are working with CDPHE staff and the director, and we'll be getting a response to you. At this point, do we have, is it Kathy Collins that is next, Ms. Larson?
Yes, and Ms. Collins has been unmuted.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I live on Battlement Mesa also, and I would like to reiterate my strong concerns regarding the proposed APAD, the proposal to drill 24 natural gas wells within 500 feet of homes and within 1,000 feet of the Colorado River. I find it rather perplexing that the company making this proposal is unwilling to consider alternative sites. It doesn't really make sense to me. However, my focus is on an area that I feel needs to be addressed, and that is the need for rulemaking to take into consideration climate change. And I won't get on my soapbox. Climate change, I'm an environmental scientist. We are currently in the middle of a drought that covers 86% of Colorado. You may have noticed that. But nearly 60% of the state is in the severe to extreme drought range. The area most affected is the lower half of the state. This affects agriculture and wildlife alike, both in terms of water scarcity and increased chances of wildfire. I'm sure the ranchers and farmers can say more to that. But the rise in temperature attributable to anthropogenic climate change is exacerbating an already bad situation. I'm reading this. The 2.7 degree Fahrenheit temperature change that we are trying and failing to stay below is only an average. We don't know the exact temperature change in any specific place. But Colorado already has twice as much area in extreme drought as compared to the worst of the other states affected, and more than 3 times as much as the rest. I can't say how much of that is attributable to climate change, but I can tell you that 26% more land is in at least the abnormally dry range compared to last year at this time. Anything that you could potentially contribute to climate change that could potentially contribute to climate change needs serious consideration as you're developing your rules. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe we have Tracy Mcdermott up next, if she could be unmuted.
We are working through this. Give us a moment. There we are.
There we go.
Yes,
Ms.
can you hear?
McDermott,
Yes.
we can hear you
Okay.
fine, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tracy Mcdermott, and I work as a clinical research manager out at the Anschutz Medical Campus. I live near one of the most polluted intersections in Denver at Colorado and Colfax, and I'm writing to you today, or talking to you today, to express my concerns over gas emissions in our state. I urge the Commission to adopt strong flaring regulations and to remember that doing so is not only protecting our climate, but also public health. As health professionals are on the front lines of the fight against COVID-19, they are also on the front lines of our climate crisis. COVID-19 has made it more clear than ever the importance of clean air for our health. In order to ensure Coloradans can live healthy lives, we must drastically cut Colorado's air pollution. This includes methane, a harmful greenhouse gas up to 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide. accounting for nearly 25% of Colorado's greenhouse gas emissions. Methane pollution poses severe risk to our climate, health, and way of life. As a health professional, I am very concerned about the emissions from oil and gas operations and the harmful effects these pollutants have on Coloradans. In Colorado, residents living near oil and gas operations have reported irritation to the eyes, nose, and throat, along with serious respiratory effects, headaches, and nausea. In a 2019 study, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment found that residents living within 2,000 feet of drilling operations were more at risk of both cancerous and non-cancerous health effects. Another recent study found that women living near areas where flaring is common had 50% greater odds of giving birth prematurely than those who did not. These adverse outcomes fall entirely on Hispanic women, highlighting the stark racial disparities in environmental health. In order to avoid the worst impacts of climate change, protect public health, and leave a legacy for our children and grandchildren, we must drastically cut pollution. This includes methane as well as carbon dioxide. Once again, I urge you to adopt strong flaring regulations. These flaring regulations are an equitable necessary step to ensuring all Coloradans have the opportunity to live healthy lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. And Ms. Larson, we have one last presenter. Is that Shayna Oliver? Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And give us a moment and we'll have Ms. Oliver unmuted here.
Ms. Oliver, you have been unmuted and we can hear you and you have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you for providing this opportunity. Again, my name is Shayna Oliver. I am a mother of 4, and we are descendants of the genocide of the Indian Removal Act, known to the Dene people as the Long Walk of the Navajo. I am also a field organizer for Moms Clean Air Force Colorado, and we are mothers, fathers, and caregivers. We're united 1 million strong nationally in fighting for our children's right to an equitable, healthy environment. And we support Black Lives Matters, as well as immigrants and Indigenous people's rights matter, as well our children's lives matter. As an Indigenous woman, I am systematically segregated to live in areas that are redlined for affordable housing, such as Northeast Denver metro area along the highways and neighbors with Suncor. And the shutdown to reduce outbreaks of COVID-19 have shown the world how irresponsible the United States government have been all along. Black, Latino, and Indigenous communities are disproportionately impacted by adverse health conditions. Indigenous people have the highest rates of asthma, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, leukemia, mental illness, birth defects, and premature deaths in the general population. I and my relatives check off on most of these health conditions. This doesn't account for lost hours of work, school, healthcare costs, funeral costs, poor housing conditions, and economic instability. Colorado showed up and supported Senate Bill 181 and House Bill 1261. And I expect this commission to ensure that flaring of methane captures all methane, hydrocarbon, volatile organic compounds, hazardous air pollutants, and nitrogen oxide emissions. Please ensure Coloradans that our health and environment will be protected by having strong, robust rules that eliminate all routine flaring. Non-routine flaring must be limited to flaring necessary to respond to emergencies, such as where necessary for safety or unplanned maintenance. Flaring to absence of a gas gathering line or lack of on-site gas capture equipment is not an excuse to waste natural gas. Scientists are telling us we need to dramatically reduce our emissions to 0 if we want to protect our children's health and environmental well-being. Please ensure students of Belo Romero Academy are protected, as well protect all families from these toxic emissions contributed by methane leaks and flaring. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. We appreciate your attendance and your comments this evening. Ms. Larson, do we have anyone else that signed up and is available for comment?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. That concludes public comment portion of the agenda. And frankly, I don't have the agenda up. Ms. Larson, is there anything else on our agenda that we need to take up at this point?
Not at this point. We ended the meeting with public comments today, so that was it.
All right. Hi, commissioners. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to this evening?
Mr. Chair, just one quick note. I just wanted to say that I think this is a really great idea to bring in this evening hearing time, and I hope we can continue it at least monthly, so we can give everyone access to share their voice with us.
I agree. Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez, for those comments. Commissioner Nanjapa.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez. I was going to say the same. I'm glad that we're doing an evening hearing, and I want to thank all the people who came after probably a long day of work to make their comments. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I do, again, want to reiterate what Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Nanjaba indicated, that it is very meaningful to me that people are taking their time after work to provide comment. I think there was a comment out there that were just faces that are unblinking. That's actually me listening. And I do listen, and I take these comments very seriously, and I appreciate the consistent comments that I've seen as over a year and a half, I think, that I've been on the commission now. I will share some thoughts that I have as far as we move into rulemaking and the importance of public comment in rulemaking, is that a lot of the comments that we hear during these listening sessions are pretty broad and general based. And I think that as we move into rulemaking, I would encourage the public and the folks that are commenting to dig into the rules that have been provided. There's a volume of work that's been done in developing the draft rules. And some of the rules certainly address some of the concerns that folks are sharing during these public comment sessions. Certainly I'm interested in hearing whether folks feel like the draft rules meet or do not meet their expectations or their hopes. And so I think it's valuable to be specific as we're moving forward as far as, how the different rules may or may not address your concerns. And then do understand that while there's a significant volume of rulemaking that's going to be occurring here beginning in a couple of weeks or less than a couple of weeks, and will be going on for a couple of weeks in order to be able to step into mission change. A lot of concerns around financial assurances are being expressed, and that is another rulemaking that'll be occurring shortly after we accomplish the mission change rulemaking. So specificity on that one I think is good as well. So, but I do appreciate everyone's comments and willingness to continue to engage in these conversations. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Messner. I echo everything you said. So I think we all do. So again,
even that I'm an unblinking face on the screen.
You're able to be very still, Commissioner Messner. We can't tell if you're frozen. Thanks everybody for attending this evening. Again, just one last reminder, a lot of the comments were around the rulemaking that we're going to be doing. That starts August 24th. Go to our website, public comments, maybe Ms. Larson, if you could tell the folks when public comments are due for each of the series one last time and how to provide written feedback.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So public comments on the 200 through 600 series, the first leg of the mission change rulemaking, those are due on August the 19th at 5 p.m. And we ask that they be sent to our DNR rulemaking email address. And that's dnr_cogcc.rulemaking@state.co.us. And then comments on the 800, 900, and 1200 series rules are due on September the 18th by 5 p.m. And don't worry if you weren't able to write down that email address. We do have it posted on our homepage under news and notices. It's the second entry entitled Mission Change Rulemaking Written Public Comments. So all the information I just gave is available there on our homepage.
Great. Thank you for that information, Ms. Larson. With that, I believe we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, Colorado, for attending this evening. We'll do this again sometime.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yep.